Hmm.
So we'll just jump into it real quickly. I usually do a brief background on how I got to where I am, and then we'll talk. We'll go right into Q&A because that seems to be the most value for everybody on the call. We have a large group today. I can probably go a little bit later than the normal time because I don't have anything until my flight later today.
Right.
But just a little bit about me. I grew up in Portland, Maine my entire life. I went to school in Maryland, graduated during the Great Recession, got into finance. Not a fantastic time to get into finance, but started working my way through retail banking and then brokerage at TD Ameritrade and then asset management with Merrill Lynch. And then lastly with T. Rowe Price in Baltimore before starting the oil change business. And much like a lot of the people that we've sold franchises to, I was not expecting to leave my job to do this full time. I had a really good job at T. Rowe Price. It was, still is to this day, a great company and great culture, great pay, great stability. And but I've always had an entrepreneurial side, and I thought that if I opened up this store, if I opened up a business, a side business, I'd scratch that itch and I'd be able to kind of move on with always having a wandering eye uh, all the time. And so I wanted to look at businesses that I thought were manager centric, but not skilled manager centric. If anyone's been on one of my prior calls or have heard me say that, what I mean by that is I don't want to, I wasn't looking at a pizzeria where if your main pizza maker gets sick, then you got to shut down or you got to make the pizza yourself. I had no intention of leaving my job at T. Rowe Price. So I wanted there to be a situation where there was continuity in the store if the key employee was sick or left you. And so I looked at a few different businesses that I thought were manager centric businesses, and then I ended up going forward with the quick lube model because it was already set up where the manager had 2 days off a week. There was continuity of the store when he had his day off. The couple that owned the business in Harrisburg was the first location. They were kind of just checked out, and I was able to acquire the business for less than its asset value. And I spent a lot of time thinking about the model and trying to figure out how do I improve this model, because I do believe that most great businesses are built from finding a void in the consumer space and filling that void. So I spent a lot of time at my desk at T. Rowe Price reading reviews from some of the competitors on Yelp back when Yelp was still relevant. And so the quick lube space had a credibility problem, it had a reputation problem, and I thought there was an opportunity there to help fix some of those issues. And so the model worked in Harrisburg. The store grew relatively quickly. We opened a second location in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, which is a small town of 6,000 people. That really validated the model for me. And then our third location was in the suburbs of Chicago. And that really validated the model for me because it's a 2-hour flight, 14-hour drive. So I was really running the business absentee, and ingrained very early in the DNA of this business was processes for running this business from afar. And so as we opened up stores 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, each time those processes got better. Around store number 10, we've always been a consumer facing business. I've always sought to solve a consumer problem, but in our space, there's also an operator problem, which in my opinion bleeds into the consumer problem. Quick lubes traditionally have been a portfolio game. There's a lot of private equity sloshing around in the quick lube space, and they'll own 10 to 15 units, and maybe 2 of them outperform and pay for the rest of the portfolio. And I think that bleeds into the service that gets down to the consumer level. So I felt as though if we created a better model for operators and for not family offices, but just not having it to be necessarily high net worth individuals getting into this space, then that would be a positive impact on the consumer experience as well. And so it really started with the building itself. If any of you are familiar with crexi.com or LoopNet, do a quick search of oil change facilities. They sell at a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cap. And a lot of these guys have turned into real estate companies where they'll put the building up for $1.2 million. And then they'll resell it to triple net investors. And then the operator will have a very onerous burden on their business from having such a high rent. And I've seen, rents as high as $10, $12, $15,000 a month, sometimes more. And what that has done is forced our space to move into a more full service line of business, which is not what I think the consumer wants. And so I believe we resolved this through the, prefabricated building that we came up with. We have very low rental rates opposed to some of the other players in our space. And I think this allows for the franchisees to focus on the oil change only model, which at the end of the day is what I believe the consumer wants. And that's kind of the genesis of this entire vision is, getting to scale so that when electric vehicles penetrate in a more meaningful way, that we are top of mind brand awareness when it comes to quick oil change only, not having to worry about, is someone getting tires in front of me? Is someone getting brakes in front of me? Is someone getting a serpentine belt? We know that it's just an oil change. We'll get in, get out on our lunch break or our day off, whatever it may be. We're not losing our car to an appointment. We're not, doing this, doing that. So, I'll open it up to Q&A. I could go on and on about the business. I could talk about it ad nauseum. It's my third child. So, but please, we do have a discovery day coming up next week. We do get into the secret sauce, kind of the minutia of the business. So please keep the questions to like high level macro questions as possible, because that's what the purpose of this particular call is for. I have no problem answering pointed specific questions, but just like things about vendors, things like that. That's really what our discovery day is for. And I'll let Michael curate the Q&A.
Okay, great. Thanks, Costa. I'll just move left to right on my screen. It's easiest. And if you wouldn't mind just limiting your question to one question to start off with, we'll do a round robin, and then we'll try and get back through again if anyone else has additional questions. And then Kristen, my associates, and I can always follow up with you afterwards. And then I know that a number of you on the call today that will be hopefully coming to our discovery day as well. Tony, you're coming up first. Do you have a question for Costa? Oh, you're on mute.
About now.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
So one of the things, Michael, you and I were talking about was scaling these up. And we talked about when is it appropriate to bring on an area manager. And we were looking at about 3 to 4 store market before the numbers were right to bring on an area manager. Scaling up from there, I guess, what's the next level or tier of management you would bring on? So you said Costa had 12 to 14 stores.
Yes.
I guess what's the management profile look like to operate 14 stores?
Great. Okay.
That's a great question, Tony. And the 3 number is a really good number. Our territory managers work inside the stores, but they basically float so that they can keep an eye on the actual operations. The more traditional model in the quick lube space is for the territory manager to work in an office 4 days out of the 5, and then maybe 1 day go do rounds. I think it's actually more appropriate for the territory manager to actually be inside the stores. So for our central Pennsylvania market, where we have 5 stores within a reasonable margin, our territory manager is actually the store manager of one of the stores. And he handles those responsibilities as well as the scheduling and ordering and handling of the other locations in the central PA market. As we move western into western PA and eastern Ohio, we have a second territory manager where that territory manager handles all of the eastern Ohio and western PA stores, and that is a total of 7 stores between that market. And he also oversees the 2 Chicago stores, but we are opening several new locations in Chicago, and so that will be bundled into a new territory manager position, because 3 is really that magic number for having someone who is responsible for those territory manager duties.
Gotcha. And what kind of pay band do you establish for a territory manager versus a store manager versus a straight frontline employee?
Yeah, so things have been very fluid over the last year. Anyone on this call that has employees, I think, understands that. And so we had in 2015, 2016 moved away from salaried managers. And then in the past maybe 6 months, we've been moving back to salaried managers. And so traditionally our territory managers had been $17, $18 an hour. And actually we had a territory manager who was $15 an hour and did a really excellent job. You know, Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio is a very low cost of living area. So it goes a long ways, but you know, Chicago is not. And so that manager is probably going to be a $45,000 a year position. But they're going to be putting in 45 to 50 hours a week. And so we're not paying that 10 hours overtime on the hourly. And that, you know, is kind of the direction that things are going. We've had territory managers. Well, our two main territory managers have had their positions now with complete continuity for 4 years each. So we haven't had much replacement at that level. Store manager turnover is a little bit more. And then at the full-time employee level, that's where you see kind of the higher turnover. But that should, you know, that's the model for the territory manager side of things.
And at 45 grand, is that full burden or is that face value you're projecting?
No, that's face value. We have some benefits, and that's just the base. And we'll do some bonus incentives that don't have to do with actual selling of products, because that's been a huge problem in our industry.
Okay.
But that's on a market by market basis as well, and to store by store basis as well. You can really kind of pull the strings based on what's happening in the individual stores.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Question. And Michael, before I know I'm done with my questions, but I also have my partner here, Adam.
Oh, good. Hi, Adam.
Question for you guys as well, and then we can quit monopolizing.
Okay. I apologize if you already went over this with Tony or not, but with your franchise, how many franchise stores have you have gone under for you guys, and how many have you guys had to take back from franchisees over the last few years? I know the current market's been crazy, so you know, that's kind of a loaded question, but I'm just kind of curious on the track record.
Sure. So thanks, Adam. We're an emerging brand. We launched as a franchise in late April of 2021. We sold our first franchise in late April, and our first location opened a month ago. So we've only been selling franchises for about 12 months at this point, and we're about to cross the 100 territory number relatively soon. So we have massive momentum because I think the model resonates pretty well. From the corporate side of things, to try to answer your question, we've only closed one store, and it was not due to performance. It was due to my landlord not renewing our lease and selling the building to a developer. And it was a really good store that I did not want to close. And so I'm not making that mistake again. I'm trying to purchase as many of the buildings that we operate out of to kind of keep that fate in our hands. But if you want more of a macro view of this, I would point you to the Valvoline Instant Oil Change FDD, because it has those numbers and they probably represent the model that we are trying to do closer than anyone else. Obviously they're a publicly traded company, so they have the deeper pockets to keep underperforming stores operating without closing them. But from the franchise side of things, they would have those numbers in their item 20, Michael.
Item 20, yeah. Yep. And did you disappear, Costa?
No, I'm still.
Oh, okay. Yep. And there are, if you want to look at FDDs, you can go to the Wisconsin registrar, of franchising. You can just
Yeah,
Google
the
it and
easier-
then,
Yeah, the easier way is probably just FDD exchange. Create a website. You can look at one FDD per day without having to spend any money.
Okay.
thank you. Thanks. Well, hopefully, Tony, we'll see you at the Discovery Day.
Yeah, well, we're making arrangements now.
Oh, great. Awesome. Landon, you actually skipped to the left of my screen. So you're up next. Good morning. And thank you for joining us from Texas
How
today.
you doing?
Hi.
I really don't have very many questions in regards to it. You've answered most of mine, Michael. One thing that I kind of had a little bit concerned about, and I'm sure y'all have too, in regards to, yeah, we got a lot of gas vehicles out there on the market, but we're also getting a trend of these EV goes, and we're going to be seeing these guys hit the market pretty hard here, 2023 to 2027. Is there any plans in the market or in y'all's in Costa Oil in regards to doing any type of maintenance towards those individuals so that you don't lose that percentage of the market?
Yeah, electric vehicles have very little maintenance requirements
Right.
other than like tire rotations, changing tires, and they have some fluids, but there's not really enough maintenance at this point with the current models on the market to create a industry around it. You know, for us, our model has very little overhead compared to some of our competitors, and we need very little market share to operate in the green. And so one thing that I will mention is, because we have our talk tracks around electric vehicles, we have all the things. I'm sure Michael has mentioned some of these things, but there's 270 million registered internal combustion engine vehicles on the road. And right now the electric vehicle market is 4%. There needs to be massive upgrades to our infrastructure before that number can become a more meaningful number. And I think that's part of what this administration is trying to do is upgrade the infrastructure. So we're not going to stick our head in the sand and pretend these changes are not coming. But one statistic that sticks out to me is in our business, we have two categories, do it for me and do it myself. And generationally speaking, every generation has become more do it for me than the previous generation. So, you know, back in the 1950s, the owner's manual of a car would tell you how to change the timing in the owner's manual and show you how to do it. Now, owner's manuals tell you not to get battery acid in your mouth. So it's just kind of the direction that things are going. And so one statistic that I have seen that is more important to me than any of the others is the rate at which people enter, that the newer generations enter the do it for me market, outpaces the sale of EVs. And so while the overall number of internal combustion engines might be less, the number of do it for me consumers is increasing faster. And so the industry is actually seeing growth, not a decline. That may change when maybe it gets 50-50 someday. You know, that is all speculative when that can even happen. As of right now, this moment, if even 14% of the current registered vehicles on the road were electric, we would have a Texas style energy crisis on a, you know, bi-weekly basis. And so it's just not there yet. And the bigger manufacturers just have not shown the ability to follow through with any of their claims. You know, GM was supposed to have 25 EVs by 2025, and they can't even seem to, you know, get sunroofs on their 2022 Silverados these days. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But
you get any of the computer chips.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I read an article yesterday that said that there's a chip shortage for the machines that make the chips.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, it'll all play out, but I do believe that we have an opportunity here to be the model that is left behind when the dust settles. Because I think at the end of the day, the consumer wants that oil change only model.
Yeah, and fast.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, Lena, thank you. for the question. Rich Allen, welcome. Do you have a question for Costa?
Yeah, I was just curious about what you were saying earlier in regards to, you had a store up and they sold the land. I was looking at some of the financing and leasing. What happens if you're in the middle of a 10-year lease and whoever owns that land decides they want to sell the land? Are you kind of bound to that lease for the rest of the 10 years, or how does that work? And this may be a question for the finance company, but I was just curious, did you have options in that regard, or is that really just?
No, you're protected when the leases have to line up. The ground lease and the building lease line up in conjunction with the franchise agreement. And because our building is prefabricated, there is an opportunity to move the building as well.
Okay.
It can literally be put on a truck and moved, but that is not really something that I think would be very common. My problem was my 3-year lease had expired, and in Pennsylvania law, if it doesn't renew, then it goes month to month. And so when you're month to month, you're completely exposed. If you have a lease, you're protected. And so you'll have a 15-year ground lease, you'll have a 15-year, or you'll have a 10-year ground lease with a 5-year option. I had, in that particular instance, a 3-year lease with no renewal options. And so when I called them up to sign a new lease, they said, we're going to try to sell the building. And that's what they did. And I didn't really have any recourse at that point. So all of my leases were working in options to make sure that you have at least up to that 15-year to make sure your entire franchise agreement is protected.
So if you had a 15-year lease, that would have prevented them from being able to.
Correct.
Okay, I got you.
Okay. They would have either had, I mean, they could have bought me out of the lease and paid for me to relocate, or if they wanted to sell the property that badly. But when you have a lease, you're protected.
Okay, appreciate it. Just curious how that works.
Michael, can I add something to that?
Sure. Yeah.
So when y'all actually do, you had mentioned that y'all do the financing if need be. What type of rates are y'all actually offering, and have y'all seen these rates with that company since the Fed's been raising these rates? Because that makes a difference on how fast we want to do this. Who are y'all using, and how fast or what is the rate that we're actually that y'all have been getting for these things?
So the new construction loans from traditional financing is very, very difficult. And what we've done is we've partnered with a consortium of private investors that do triple net leasing. It's a group of private investors who in the past 5 years have put up $300 generals and some Checkers restaurants and et cetera. And so the model we're currently doing is a 10%, and I haven't heard any different at this moment in time, but I will be speaking with our investor group next week when I get back from Chicago. So it's 10% of the build cost. So if it's just to use round numbers, our single bay building is about a $200,000 build out, and we're leaving in about $100,000 for site development. And site development is really the big variable, because the town could require you to plant 50 trees. They could require you to have curbage. They could require you to do this and that. But I think 100,000 is pretty conservative. So if we just use 300,000 as the build out number, it's a 10% cost that goes to the investors. So you take 300,000, multiply it by 0.1, that gives you the 30,000 divided by 12. That it leads to your rental rate of 2,500. Now your ground lease is whatever you negotiate with whoever you do the lease with. We have several franchisees who are buying the ground and then selling it to the investors. That turns the transaction into what's called a fee simple real estate deal. And that's the most preferred way. But ground leases can certainly be the path of least resistance, as long as all the zoning lines up and there's not too much variances required. So, but that 10% number as of right now is still what we are being quoted on the construction cost.
Great. Okay, thanks. Charlie, you're up next. Do you have a question for Costa?
Yeah, you guys have kind of gone over a lot for me. My main concern is personalization with each shop. In some cities and in some states, people look for other things like state inspections. Is that something that we'd be able to offer at these locations, or is this strictly going to be something that's just not in the plan?
We would consider it on a 1-by-1 basis. We would not allow it in our single bay model. Our 2-bay building is about a $400,000 build out, so that impacts the rental rate. We don't want to be tying bays up with non-oil change related services. So our ancillary products, such as wiper blades, air filters, pop and pours, your fuel injector cleaners, your things that don't add on to bay time, which is one of our main KPIs, which just stands for key performance indicators. State inspection is one of those things that typically states require you to drive the car away from the lot. It's extra equipment, et cetera, et cetera. If it's a higher staff store, then maybe you can get away with that. But typically, if you have an oil change in bay 1 and you have an inspection in bay 2, you don't want, for quality control purposes, you don't want your other employee leaving the shop. So again, on a 1-by-1 basis, we'll consider it potentially, but for the most part, we want to stick to the try to stick to the oil change only model, because that's what we feel as though the consumer wants.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie. Garrett, you were up last year. Hopefully you got your audio back.
Michael, real quick, I want to just add some flavor onto that last question.
Oh, sorry.
On a conversion, it would be a higher possibility than on a new build. On a new build, we probably would want our prefabricated buildings to remain oil change only. But on a conversion, we would probably be leaned towards allowing something like a state inspection more heavily than on our new construction.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Costa. Garrett, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Good morning, Costa. This is Garrett Sylvia in North Carolina. I think maybe the first or second question revolved around paying general managers and the retention of them through, benefits and maybe sales goals, et cetera. My question is the acquisition of that talent. How do you recruit that talent? What is the talent pool that you're looking for? I.e., who are these people? I'll shut up and let you answer. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Staffing is one of the biggest concerns for any business right now. We have the fortunate benefit of having our business be at a very base level, a trade and an interest to the guys working. It's not like, Flagger Force where you're, just holding the stop sign for a payday. Like a lot of our guys actually they just want to be around cars. And so that base level of interest in the actual work helps continuity of the stores and helps the employees be a little bit stickier than some other industries. And also the fact that we're only doing oil changes allows us to pay commensurate with that skill set. We're not hiring ASC certified mechanics. To answer your question more pointedly, Garrett, we utilize Facebook almost exclusively for store level employees. Indeed is not really a great place to find store level employees, maybe a territory manager. But again, I am looking more for people that are put together in a way that's presentable. I think we're a retail business first, automotive second. And so some of my best employees have been like, I use this example all the time. Michael's heard it many times, is a shift manager, a late night shift manager from a Taco Bell. He had the social skills to look people in the eye. He had the confrontational skills from dealing with, drunk people at 1 a.m. at Taco Bell. He was a well-rounded individual, knew how to keep a store, run processes, and, teaching him oil changes was the least of the problems. And so, for us, the experience with the customer is so important that we need guys that are going to be able to look that person in the eye, strike up a conversation that personalizes the experience. And so Facebook, for what it's worth, Facebook allows you to take a peek into their life. I mean, when you're hiring using Facebook, and at the moment there's no regulations around it, but if you want to take a look at their profile, and if they're, holding up middle fingers to the camera, if they're, doing stuff you don't like, then you get to move on and you don't have to waste your time. And, before the Cambridge Analytics incident in 2014, you could actually target people based on their prior employers. So we were able to target classified ads based on people who had worked at, other automotive shops, and that was really beneficial. That's gone, but Facebook still does have targeting methods for certain demographics, and so you can really, before even wasting your time bringing someone in, you can take a glance and see, what's going on, and it helps with hiring immensely.
Great.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Costa. Well, we could run back through all of the individuals on the call. And Landon, do you have another question for Costa?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, I guess let's open it up now. Costa, you've got until 11:30 Eastern, right?
I can take questions for
Okay.
next 10-15 minutes.
Okay, great. Well, I'll open it up, and anyone else who has a question, please go ahead.
This is Richard. I've got a question. I want to talk a little bit more about salaries. You mentioned Chicago, some areas that have a higher cost of living. What is your metric that you use? When I talk to some franchises who have a cost of living index are going by, I mean, what do you use to be able to figure that out? Do you have some recommendation you make for each location? Here's what the average would be for that role, or how do you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, and while we're on the subject, I'll mention before I answer this question, Michael has a PDF that he can share with everybody on this call that has industry averages for the entire quick lube industry, and it goes from tech salaries to manager salaries to average ticket to percentage of what type of oil is sold across the country, and car count, things like that. So Michael can send that PDF to everyone on this call, and it's a really insightful document that we have in our industry. But for me, we're about to do hiring in Illinois for this new store that we're about to open, and it's on the western side of Illinois, almost in Iowa, so it'll be a completely different beast than the Chicago suburbs. But typically in the past, we have done raises based.
Yeah, the information popped up in the modem, so hold on, it's disconnected. Everything's showing up good.
Based on the general consensus for the market in whatever market we're in. So that's, we'll use Valvoline's classified listings, we'll use Take Five's classified listings, we'll use Jiffy Lube's classified listings, and we typically have been able to pull employees for even less than what they pay, just because the culture of our work is a lot better than those places that have very high pressure upselling requirements, very quick to fire people if they're not hitting sales goals, depending on the actual business. Some of them are just, it doesn't sit well with them, some of the unethical things that are asked, putting your finger in the power steering fluid and holding it in front of grandma's face and saying, oh, you need a power steering fluid change, and she has no idea what she's looking at. And I've had a number of employees we've brought over from other places that have learned all these unethical behaviors in order to just sell things, and these guys are put in a position where they have to do it just to keep their job or make their bonuses. And the way that cars are built right now, it's just impossible for every single car to roll through your doors to need a secondary item. Now, if you convert on the ones that do at a much higher level, you educate the consumer on their experience, on their vehicle and what's needed, and you convert at a higher percentage rather than throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, then the sales will come as well. But, you know, when I was younger, the Nissan Sentra and Altima were like considered death traps. And now, you know, they make a really nice car. Same with Kia. Like the Kias are really good cars now. And all cars manufactured in 2022 at a base level are quality vehicles. And so there's just not, you know, it's impossible. I see some of these sales goals that some of the competitors have and ticket average goals for the store level, and it's just impossible without doing something unethical to hit some of those numbers. And so that has translated to us being able to pull guys from other competitors for less money but peace of mind.
Great.
Do you have information on the cost of an oil change relative to different parts of the country? And you know, are you within a particular market, or are you competitive with a like Jiffy Lube?
We're typically priced 10 to 20% below Jiffy Lube or Valvoline. Valvoline's publicly traded, so I follow their quarterly earnings and I listen to their calls and their investor relations calls to see what they're doing. And they've recently moved the full synthetic oil change to $99.99, and so we're entering a very interesting space because that, you know, human beings like round numbers, and it'll be interesting to see what happens when whoever is the first to make the base price of a full synthetic $105 or $110 or whatever it may be. You know, we're currently at $79.95. We don't dictate pricing at the franchisor level. The franchisees are free to market base their pricing. If they feel as though their service is good enough to match the price of the closest competitors, they are more than welcome to do that. But in the first 3 years of this business, you're really in full-on customer acquisition mode. We do have a ramp-up period. We're not like a Chick-fil-A that on grand opening day, the people that came there on grand opening day come back 4 more times that week and you have instant cash flow. Every car that rolls through our doors on day one doesn't come back for 3 months or 3,000 miles or 5,000 miles, whatever their interval is. So we do have that ramp up period. However, the stickiness of our customers creates a very reliable source of income and a very predictable source of income. And so once you do get them in the doors, you know, they do tend to stick.
Oh, I'll just add, you know, Valvoline has come up a lot. We actually have a Valvoline manager coming to our Discovery Day next week, who's looking to buy a kiosk down in near the Tampa area in Florida. So I just add that in. Charlie and Garrett, any more questions?
Yeah, I have a small question kind of about product, and I don't know if this is something you guys went over already, but as far as creating a vendor program, or not so much a program, but relationship with, say, Mobil or Pennzoil, is that something that we're open to use whoever we'd like, or are you guys kind of determine the relationship on who we wholesale from?
No, we don't mandate. We don't mandate a lot. Even though this is a franchise, and I largely believe that franchising is paint by numbers, I do truly believe that franchise owners are business owners. So I want to give people the latitude to run their business as long as it's within the confines of the model. But we will tell you what has worked for us, and we have vendor relationships, and we go over those vendor relationships at Discovery Day. And I largely believe that brand does not matter to the average quick lube consumer. And so we at the corporate level are not going to associate with a brand. We want to keep that marketing margin and keep it to ourselves in the form of a lower cost of oil. Right now, because of this massive price increase on lubricants, you're seeing a lot of people fleeing to the unbranded oil, because when you buy Pennzoil, when you buy Mobil, you're getting an extra $1, $2, $3, $4 added in price per gallon. And the average quick lube consumer, in my personal opinion, just that doesn't move the needle for them. And sometimes I believe because of the reputational damage that has happened in this industry, a lot of the times I think they don't believe you're putting in what you say you're putting in when it comes to a brand. You know, we've polled customers, we've done our own research, and Mobil 1 is easily the most recognized brand in all of lubricants, followed by Pennzoil and Castrol, and Amsoil starting to move up there as well. But Mobil tried to do a quick lube chain, and it has failed, and they're closing stores. And you would think that if brand was the most important factor to the quick lube consumer, that Mobil 1 Express Lube would be the largest chain in the country, and it's not even top 15. So that's kind of our view on it. However, that being said, we don't mandate that you use our oil company. You can use your own company, but we will, let you know that we think that it's a waste of margin to do that. That being said, we do have a relationship with AutoZone and a national account with AutoZone that allows us to purchase STP oil in what's called bag in a box. It's like boxed wine only for motor oil. And that allows us to keep what I consider a historic brand on, in the store. So if someone comes in and they're like, hey, what brand do you have? And we tell them what's in our bulk tanks, and they're like, oh, I need a real brand. Well, we do carry, this STP for that one-off person that they're going to leave if they don't get a brand. And then we price it accordingly. We'll carry Mobil 1 in the stores as well. And we price it accordingly. It'll be an expensive oil change.
Yeah. Garrett, any other questions for Costa?
Oh yeah, I think everybody asked great questions. I'm good. Thanks, guys.
Now, I don't think I ever asked you, Michael, and I couldn't find it online, but
yeah.
Do you carry, do y'all carry any conventional as well as the synthetic blend and full synthetic?
Yeah, no. So we just do two, good and best. The semi-synthetic. Oh, sorry. I'll let Costa answer this.
Yeah, better and best.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, our industry has always been the good, better, best model. And as the conventional mineral-based oil has started to disappear, a lot of the companies have maintained the good, better, best model, but they've been using synthetic blend as the conventional, which makes no sense to me. So we eliminated that actually, I think earlier than anyone I can recall. And we went to a, regular service and a full synthetic service. Those are our two service models, and it's just the better, best, and it's a synthetic blend and a full synthetic. There are companies out there that still, if it's 14% synthetic base oil versus however much synthetic base oil, they'll call it conventional, but really there's really no fully truly conventional oil on the market anymore. There's some form of synthetic base oil in every oil that gets refined. So we got rid of that good, better, best model and moved to better, best, and just made it kind of a signature service and then a full synthetic service.
Great. Adam, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question for you guys. When it comes to marketing, what do you find to be the most effective model? And I also own another franchise too, and I've seen there's kind of a depending on location, a lot of times your location can do the marketing for you. How do you guys kind of approach that from a brand point of view?
Marketing, to me can be kind of divvied up into a few different segments. You have, storytelling, brand building, right hook advertising, and then customer reputation management. We have launched a new company to assist with some of the customer reputation management side of things and social media management. But in terms of marketing, we've put together a pretty extensive marketing manual that I've used over the past 8 years that has worked specifically for quick lube advertising. Dollar for dollar, pound for pound, even with the iOS 14 update, Facebook is still the best place to advertise. Facebook, Instagram, as in terms of reach and targeting your customers. We are a geographically based business, so we don't have to worry on like super specific demographic targeting. We can just do it based on geofencing. And so when franchisees ask me like, hey, I have this, 2% ad spend, what would you do if you were starting over with one store? The true honest answer would be 90% Facebook ads and then 10% Google ads. That's just how I honestly feel. That being said, direct mail still works in some places, doesn't work in other places. We sponsor little league teams to ingratiate ourselves with local communities. We get involved with those types of sponsorships and marketing. But as we build the brand through different channels, whether it's our direct to consumer products or actual advertising, I personally removed our national brand fund because I feel as though we shouldn't establish one until we have 50 open units operating in different parts of the country. It's just not fair to the franchisees to take an additional 2% on top of the 2%, on top of the 6.5%, when we don't have a national presence. And so we will assist with marketing efforts. And you can always mirror what we do at the corporate level as well. We have all that stuff on our internal intranet website. But as an emerging brand, we have to be really strategic about this kind of stuff.
Costa, as kind of a follow-up to that, this is Tony. What are you looking at or projecting as a ramp-up period for a location?
So
I know it's going to vary, but
Yeah.
average, what are we thinking?
Traditionally in our space, if you actually look at some of the Valvoline earnings calls, they've referred to their franchisee ramp-up period as 3 to 4 years. I think ours, because of our model and our overhead and our training model and methods, I believe our ramp-up period is 9 to 12 months. We have half the staff of some of these other players. We have much less SKUs. We have lower rent, and there should be a quicker ramp up than other, we don't have to get to these car counts it won't take as long to get to those numbers necessary to meet that ramp up period.
And by ramp up, you mean, just so we're speaking the same language, you're paying back any financial debt services to that, all your rents, and you are on target for the estimated $95,000 owner benefit per location.
I view it as cash flow positive.
Breaking cash flow positive. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Anything else from anyone?
Yeah, I have one other question. It's more clarifying than anything else, but you mentioned some inspections and some other things. So no differential, no transmission, no power steering. This is just going to be oil change only. Do you allow any of the franchises to do any other type of fluids?
We are restricting everybody to services that don't add on to bay time. So, there's a lot of things you can do on consignment, like batteries, wiper blades, etc. And we don't want to be put in a position where the car is tying up the bay, because our model is based around selling people their time back. And so, you can sell other services that are quick, like drain and fills. But there's other liability that comes with that type of stuff. In the summertime, we do AC recharge, but we don't do diagnostic. In Pittsburgh, which is the most salted roads on the planet, we do undercoating for small upcharges that take the downstairs tech 5 minutes to get a can of 3M undercoating spray and spray some of those more strategic points of the car. And that's easy money because they're already down there anyway. It takes no time at all. So there are other services to increase ticket average. We're just not going to be doing brakes. We're not going to be doing tune-ups. We're not going to be doing serpentine belts. We're not going to be doing, we're open to coolant flushes if you have the right equipment, because some of these equipments can do these exchanges in very little time. But we're not going to do it with like a handheld, non-pneumatic, coolant exchanger. That's just not what we want to be doing, especially in a single bay. We're going to have a lot more latitude with a 2-bay.
So no differential. So
No. I mean, no. I mean, we corporately rarely do it, so I just don't see a situation where we would want franchisees to do it. And differentials these days are, almost 200, 300,000 mile intervals.
What sounds like that's it. Just to recap, if any of you are still considering coming to the Discovery Day, it is next Wednesday, Thursday, and if you're planning to fly into Baltimore Washington International Airport by 4 o'clock, and your departure on Thursday, don't book a flight any earlier than about 4:30 p.m. Eastern. We do have transport available for you, ground transportation from the airport to our corporate office. Wednesday night, there's a group dinner, which is always fun. And then on Thursday, we have the workshop. We do a deep dive on everything, and we finish up at around 1:45. And then if you are driving, we'll get details for you on the address for the hotel and also our corporate office. And generally we will meet up at around 6 p.m. in the foyer of the hotel, the Hampton Inn. So look forward to, I know some of you that I'm working with are considering coming, look forward to meeting you. And I'll send that note out for those of you that don't have it. If you wouldn't mind just emailing me, and then, or if you're working with Chris or Kristen for the operator survey that Costa mentioned by the National Oil and Lube News, it's got some great data in there. It's about 20 pages. So again, thank you for joining us, and we'll either look forward to chatting with you on the phone on the next call or see you at Discovery Day. Costa, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks everyone for being on the call.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.